Hey everybody, it's Zane Banks here, and today I'm going to do a video on warming up. I've been asked quite a lot about how I warm up or what recommendations I have for warming up, so I thought I would do a video on that. Don't mind the random trumpet saxophone sounds in the background. I just organized that for just a little bit of added ambience. So basically, I don't really get to warm up before gigs. I don't really have the time. Most of my days will be doing some teaching and then maybe go to a session or maybe have to do a lecture and then rush home and do sort of domestic duties, put my daughter to bed, have the car already packed and then rush out to a gig, and I get there maybe 10-15 minutes before I go to play, downbeat, bang, that's it. So unfortunately I don't get to do too many gigs where I have like a theatre and I have a sound check in the morning and then I can go and just chill for the rest of the day and do a bit of practice and do a proper warm-up. I wish, but there's only a couple of those that happen each year, and they're usually at guitar festivals or arts festivals. Even if you do like big country music festivals or any of those kind of like touring festivals that you see guys like Rhett Shull sort of does, a lot of that stuff is, it's pretty rushed. Like, you rock up in the van, you play the gig, you usually get there just before you play, and that's that. So I will touch on some warm-up things you can do, but I think the most important thing to do is to stretch. I do this all the time without fail. I do it the first thing in the morning, I do it several times an hour, and I think of it as being like releasing any built-up tension that I have. And it's like when you see an 18-wheeler pull up at the lights and release the compression brakes, like kss. That's what I'm constantly doing. So the ones that I suggest, I just start with my right arm, but you can start with any. So I put my palm facing the sky, my other hand underneath, I grab the thumb, pull back, and I feel that delicious burn in my forearm. After a couple of seconds, I kind of feel like my arm or my forearm just relaxes into it. And then I turn my hand over and I do the same like this. Oh, that feels so good. And I do individual fingers. So I do my pinky and my ring and my middle, my index. Shake my hand out a little bit. And then I obviously do it with this hand as well. Just like that. Each finger. And if I'm going to be sitting down for a while, I'll probably also do some upper body ones as well. So I might do, if I was going to be teaching for a while or in the studio, or back when I had a lot of time on my hands to practice, if I was going to be doing a couple of hours in the chair, I would do this, loosen my shoulders, and you can do the ones behind like this, and you can also grab your hands like that and stretch, or even do a bit of sort of windmill kind of action like that. That just gets me loose and primed and ready to play. I feel like now I can more or less do whatever I want. I think stretching is the most important thing you can do for any kind of warm-up or preparation. If you were going to play even amateur football, you would never just rock up a minute or two before the game and just hop on the field. You'd be asking for an injury. And so if you think about the fretboard as being similar to a football field, and then these are legs, you might find that if you're playing, a gig for 3 or 4 hours, you might end up doing the same amount of finger movements as you would do footsteps on a football pitch. And if you're not prepared for that, you could do an injury, particularly if you're going to be doing a lot of playing. So I think it's really important to stretch. And as I said, I do this all the time. So, if I play for, 4 or 5 minutes and it's particularly taxing, then I might stretch it out a little bit. My observation with great guitar players is when you see someone beginning to play the guitar, they're riddled with tension. It's almost like debt. It's like they've just been given this lifetime amount of tension debt. And the difference between them and a great player on a technical level is that, say, someone like Hendrix has worked out how to pay off that debt. So when you watch him play, there's an absence of tension. Yes, of course, he needs to hold a pick and he needs to hold his hand up, but any tension that is used is just instantly expelled, and he can just keep playing, and that's why it's beautiful watching his hands play. And I think that, you know, you need to find out for yourself what are the best ways. Breathing is a very good way of, you know, managing tension when you're on the guitar. If you hold your breath, then you deoxygenate your blood, which means your muscles are starved. It's not a good thing to do. So regular breathing is fantastic. But the stretching thing, I think, is a real winner. If I were going to actually do some warm-ups and not practicing, so there is a difference between like practicing a part and then just generally warming up. My warm-ups are not that interesting. I'm just doing basic actions slowly, almost like a meditation, to kind of just get into the feel of like playing the guitar. So I might start by just doing some picking things, might put a metronome on, quite a slow tempo, might pick a string, like the A string in this example, and I just might do some alternate picking. And what I'm focusing on is making sure that everything in my body just feels good. There's no tension. My arm is resting on the edge of the guitar as if I was at a bar. So I'm using gravity, and I can feel that connection with the string. Every pluck, I can feel the tone. I can feel that I've got a secure grip on the pick. I know where the string is. And then I might do it on a different string, starting with an up. I might do some inside picking, some outside picking, some sweet stuff. The things, if I was chicken picking, I would do a lot of the exercises that I cover in the first video on chicken picking technique, a lot of that sort of. So it is just, you know, it's like when you watch, you know, baseball players and they have like a bat weight and they're just, you know, practicing their swings and everything. It's simple stuff. It's not rocket science. With my left hand, I would probably, you know, I might tap just up chromatic scale with a metronome, making sure that I'm only using the tension that's needed to hit the string. As soon as I hit that string and I take my finger off it, then I don't need tension anymore. That's a really big key. You know, monitoring how close my fingers are to the strings. Again, without tension, I don't want to be crippled. If you can sort of see here, my fingers are quite close to the strings. That improves your accuracy and your speed. Then I might do some basic pull-offs, you know, working. I'll turn up a bit so you can hear this, like. Remember, a hammer-on and a pull-off is only good if you land in the correct part of the fingertip. If you land on the fleshy pad, you're not going to get that crack, and then you're not going to get a really clean pull-off. So I'll work on that. Then I might just I could do scales as well, you know, pentatonic scales, major scales. It doesn't have to just be, you know, generic chromatic exercises. Then I might pick those just to get the fingers working together, get that coordination. I'm constantly stopping, so every 2 or 3 minutes I'll stop, stretch my hands out, just so I'm really warm. Once I've done that, you know, if I, like say I had a really big gig, I was playing at the, I don't know, New York Guitar Festival or something, and I had my own dressing room, I'd done a sound check in the morning, and I had a couple hours to kill, I would maybe start by doing this over 30-40 minutes, really get nice and warmed up, like an athlete, you know. And then the thing that I really like to do, I like playing blues. I find that when it comes to electric guitar playing, the most physically taxing is, you know, high voltage Texas blues a la Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I'll warm up doing some of that stuff. I'll ease into it. I might not go and play, you know, the most blistering version of Texas Flood, but I might chuck on like Tin Pan Alley and just jam along with Stevie Ray. And I find that the bending and the vibrato and just like shaking that tone out, that then gets me from doing my gentle warm-ups to being pretty fired up. And once I'm like that, then I might chuck on a country tune, play along with some sort of country stuff, some jazz, and then I find that like by that stage, like I'm firing on all cylinders. I'm ready to go on and play. I wish I could do that at every gig. Unfortunately, it's not the case. So I invested a lot of time when I was a student in being able to essentially play cold. I studied classical guitar at university as well as jazz guitar. And I remember hearing stories, because this was in Sydney, and John Williams, the great classical guitarist, is Australian, so he was a god at university. And there were all of these stories about how he would just turn up at the Royal College of Music in London on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock in a snowstorm, just pull his guitar out of the case and play the Berkshire Con. And the expectation was you should be able to do that, with stretching, of course. And so I just worked really hard at being able to do that, so that although it may not feel great to me, like right now I've played quite a bit so far today, I feel warm and my hands feel like supple and limber. I feel like I could play basically anything I want. Even though I might not feel like that at 9 o'clock on a winter's morning, I know that I can still do the job because I've invested time in that consistency of practicing, stopping. A good way to practice is to, if you're working on a passage that's really difficult, rather than do it under ideal comfort settings, like with the heater on and a cup of tea, in your dressing gown, or it's awesome. Like, you're never going to do a gig like that. So play it a few times, and then just when it's getting really good, stop, go and make a cup of coffee and stretch, come back, and then do it cold in the chair. And just do it 3 times, and then it starts to get good again, stop, go and check an email or whatever you got to do, and then do it again cold, and you're just training that thing to just bang out of the box. You can pick up a guitar, just like, and then totally cold, like that. And then someone says, do something like that again. Okay. Now, it's not all about speed, of course, but in the context of this, playing something really fast straight out of the blocks is kind of tricky to do. So hopefully this has given you a couple of ideas about things that you can do with your warm-ups, depending on the kind of gig that you have. I think most people are probably not really going to have the time to do a proper warm-up. There's all those great videos of Joe Bonamassa warming up backstage. I wish I had the luxury of being able to do that, but my gigging situation is quite different from his. So look, you just got to do what works for you, but I think the most important thing is to stretch so that you don't do an injury. The older I get, I'm 33 now, and I'm not, my fingers aren't what they used to be. I feel like I'm playing the best I've ever played, but I have to be kind to my body, because if you're not kind to it, it'll let you down. And I've been very fortunate that I've never actually had an injury. I've done thousands of hours of guitar playing over the last 25 years, and I've never had any kind of tendinal RSI issue. And I think that that's because I learnt from a great teacher, a guy called Philip Houghton, who was a genius when it came to guitar technique and listening to your body and what it tells you, and learning from that, making slight adjustments with your technique, and always stretching as your warm-up. So please give us a follow. You can hit the bell on the button down on the YouTube thing if you want to find out about the videos. I post a couple of times a week. I'm on Instagram at the Rev Dr. Z, where I put slightly different content up. It's more gig-orientated content. And on my Facebook artist page, there's a bit of a forum discussion thing there, so you can head over there and chat with other guitar players about gear, technique, licks, you name it, it's all there. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.